Hi everyone and welcome back to the Arsenal Fan Theory Show. And as always, I'm Bren and Mike.
Hi, Bren. It's always good to be here, especially after sealing the party deal on transfer deadline day. I think every Arsenal fan is absolutely ecstatic about it.
Yes, obviously it's been a good day. It was started off quite badly, with the news that Gunnosaurus is being sacked or being made redundant. But I know it's probably not the best timing, and I see a lot of fans are justifiably outraged about it. But it also makes sense in the sense that there's no more games, there's no more events, so Gunnosaurus doesn't really have any work to do, and I've heard that as soon as the matches are fans are allowed back, that the position will be reinstated. So at the end of the day, it does make business sense. But yeah, not to get too down on this podcast. Obviously, it's great signing Partey. Tell me, Mike, were you positive about us getting him over on deadline day?
Well, Bren, all the reports seem to suggest that we were actually going for some Awa. So I thought he was going to be the main target. But as soon as, it was kind of confirmed that he said that he will stay at Lion for at least another season or for the season. And the party news started flowing in. I was actually quite certain that we would get him over the line. I actually saw you last night, and we had a chat. I was so tired that I didn't even normally, especially when you were still living. We were still living together. We would make a day of it. We would sit in front of the TV until 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in our time, watching the transfer deadline day, and I was just so tired. And as soon as the first reports of Partey came through, I was certain that we would get him. So I went to bed at like 9 o'clock, and I woke up. Partey was signed, but I never doubt that it was going to happen.
Yeah, look, I was quite surprised when the news broke in the first sense. Most of the reports that I heard coming out of Arsenal were that after the award deal fell through, there weren't any other strong links. So it was still a bit left field out of the blue, but obviously, it did break and we're all very happy about it. I think I would still prefer a attacking midfielder over the Partey signing, but everything that I've seen, everything that I've heard, even though it's just a few YouTube clips mostly and maybe one or two games we played against Atletico, it does look very positive. It does look like a key part of Arteta's midfield, someone he really wanted. So he obviously knows a bit more than we do, so I'm sure he'll be a key member of the squad going forward.
Yeah, well, Bren, I think most Arsenal fans would agree with you. I think Arwa would be most fans, and well, we thought the club's priority as well. But I think Partey makes sense, Well, in a certain way, Awar makes sense. He's 22 years old. He's captain of Lion. They're playing Champions League, so his stocks are probably only going to rise. Where Partey from now on is probably only going to fall because he's really 27, turning 28 years old now. Um, but I think it makes sense in the way that we've always thought that Arteta wants to go to a back four, and I think Partey will enable him to do that. I don't think he's going to go straight into a back four now. Obviously, did quite a few training sessions and integrated into the side, but obviously Partey, I think, allows Arteta to play with that back four system. I expect it will probably either be Zaka as a lone CDM, or it will be Partey and Zaka next to each other and Sabas playing a bit further ahead.
Well, interesting you talk about the back four. You obviously, I know you were wearing a cricket tour this weekend while Arsenal was playing, but we did see some of the back four in the Sheffield United game. So we'll have a quick, maybe just a debrief, not a full review, but just have a quick discussion on the Sheffield game after we've discussed, the final transfers or even the transfer window as a whole from Arsenal's perspective. But yeah, I agree with you. I personally think we'd it looks like Arteta might actually want a midfield of Partey and Tobias with someone like Willian or Saka playing in the number 10. It seems like that's going to be a more well. That's almost the squad he played on Sheffield. Second half, he brought on Pepe in the right wing. He had Willian and Saka like interchanging number 10 left wing, and he had Oba down the middle. So I think that was quite interesting, and I think that it's possibly going to look like that going forward. But yeah, Xhaka also probably is a big part of his plans. But it's quite interesting that he was not in the starting lineup for Sheffield. He was taken off in the game before that. So they might.
Well,
Yeah.
well, obviously, I think, like I said, it's a big part of the plans going forward as well. Otherwise, we probably would have looked to move him on over the window, and I don't think it would be sort of suited either. But yeah, well, like you said, I missed the game, even though I hate missing any Arsenal game. But from the bits that I saw, it looks very fluent in attack if you have Aubameyang up top and then the three supporting him, Willian, Saka, and Pepe. So it looks like a very good route going forward, because ever since our defense started to show up, the goals started to dry out a bit. And even though we did get goals or one or two goals to win the game, let's say 2-1 or 1 or whatever, um, most of the time it was clinical finishes. We weren't creating as much as we used to. Like under Emery, we were tripping in goals, but we were scoring just as much.
Yeah, no, I agree. But on the Sheffield game, you could see immediately when we turned to that front, or I would say it's a 4-3-3. Or actually, it was almost more like still a 4-2-4 because, like you mentioned, the front three were so interchangeable with Aubameyang. You couldn't really pick up where they were playing. I think the only person that really stuck to his role was Pepe on the right hand side. But you could also see him getting much more involved because there were other creative players around him you could link up with. So that was quite exciting, and hopefully we also see Pepe coming out of his shell in this new 4-3-3 type of system. I think it will also really help him a lot. Um, before we go into too much detail on the Sheffield game, I just want to find out. Okay, so we had two other signings on deadline day. I can't remember their names. Both are youngsters. There's one striker and another
Nicolas
defender.
Moller was the
Moller is the
one, I
striker,
believe.
yeah. And then
And the other one, I can't remember his
yeah,
name.
so but they're both, and I think they're both 17 and 18 years old. Both of them are going to join up with the under 19s and the 23 squads. The only good news I've heard is that Muller has been linked or been described as a Ibrahimovic type player, so that's only bodes well. I think he's something like 1.95 meters, which is quite tall. So hopefully he's a quite mobile striker. But yeah, if it doesn't work out, it's a young player we're taking a bet on.
Yeah, well, obviously, Edu and Arteta and Mertesacker, I think, are looking towards the future, trying because we did sign quite a few players for our academy this season. So they're obviously looking to integrate players from the academy, like Saka and Willock and Maitland Niles came through, obviously as well. But it's very easy for a youngster to be compared to somebody, But how often does it actually pay off? Like you said, it's a youngster. He's going into our academy side. Apparently, is a very prolific goal scorer, but if it doesn't pan out, I don't think it would make too much of a difference.
Yeah, well, I think it's just like the academy side. There's quite a few players that went down on loan, and quite a few players that have been pulled up to the first team. So they probably also needed a few numbers to remain competitive in their under 23 league throughout the season. So it does make sense. And then, of course, we had two outgoings. Unfortunately, one of them was Lucas Torreira. It's a player that I really liked and rated. I just feel Fortunately, had the wrong manager at the wrong time with Emery, who missed use him in the number 10, and he never really got the opportunity to regain his confidence and form again, even with Arteta. Maybe not the type of player that Arteta, wants to use in the midfield. Maybe wants someone a bit more dynamic, a bit bigger, that can cover a bit more ground. And the other one is Guendouzi leaving on loan to Hertha Berlin. Um, Overall, I would say it's a good piece of business. The only downside is that Guendouzi returns with a year left on his contract. So there might be a potential of a little less value for the sale of the player next if we do sell him eventually.
Well, let's not get too ahead of ourselves, Brad. It's still a full season. We have no idea how his loan spell in Berlin's going to go. Obviously, it doesn't have an option or obligation to buy, so he's going to come back. I don't know if he's going to come back with the mentality that he wants to prove himself in this Arsenal side, or he's just going to see the season out, or if he wants to play big to get a contract with a big European team that plays Champions League football. But I think Arteta's doing great things. I expect a big season coming forward. Now, I'm not going to say we're going to beat everybody and we're going to dominate the Premier League and the Europa League and whatever. But I do expect a very, very solid season. I expect silverware from somewhere. I expect it to probably come from the Europa League, to be honest. And I think we're going to fight for, to be realistic, that fourth spot in the Premier League as well. I think we're going to try and go both routes to the Champions League. And Guendouzi will probably see that and sit in Berlin and says he's going to want to come back and try and prove himself. To what I expect to happen, to be honest. And Torreira, just moving on to him, his first season he really hit the ground running. He established himself as a fan favorite quite early, especially when he scored the ceiling goal to beat Tottenham 4-2 at the Emirates. But like you said, it was just probably the wrong time for him at the club. Ever since he started playing more in a more attacking role, things started to go a bit downhill or backwards for him in his Arsenal career. But he is a top quality player, but it also doesn't seem like he fits into Arteta's system. I think it was probably best for him to move on to Atletico for club and for player. And it does have an option to buy. And now, obviously, Arsenal wanted to sell him or at least include an obligation to buy. But like I said, Torreira is a quality player. So I don't expect Atletico coming back after the season and saying they don't want.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I've seen a lot of reports, some saying that there is an obligation to buy, some say that there isn't one. And I personally think it would be better for Arsenal if there wasn't one, because I believe that he'll prove himself, especially now that Partey is gone, and have a big role in the Atletico midfield. I think he'll just increase his value. But let's see what happens on that front. Back to Partey, and I think that's why Arteta signed or wanted to sign Partey that much, because the he looks to me much more of a Tobias type player than he is like a real defensive midfielder like a Fabinho or a Fernandinho. The comparisons seem to be that yes, he does like to break up play, but he's a good dribbler, and he does like to move the ball forward quite quickly. So a double pivot of a Ceballos Partey might actually work very well, because if one pushes up, the one can fall back, vice versa, because Ceballos has a very good tackle on him, and he's very defensively aware. So it might be a very good combination in the midfield that we will see going forward, or hopefully we'll see going forward. But even if we've got Xhaka in there, lying a bit deeper, and having a Ceballos, Partey interchange in the midfield, one pushing up, one staying behind to give Xhaka some cover. It also might be, a very exciting prospect, a much more defensively sound prospect, probably. So I think that Arsenal have got a lot to look forward to, especially looking at the other clubs in the Premier League. Chelsea haven't really hit their stride yet. Man United look absolute shambles at the moment. Hopefully that continues. Hopefully, what Ole doesn't get sacked before we have to face him. I think we play them 1 November. Hopefully he stays at the wheel until at least then.
Yeah, well, as an Arsenal fan, Bren, I can tell you I'm very excited. Well, obviously, Arsenal fan as well, but I think we do have a lot to look forward to this season. The thing that's about Arteta is that he always seems to surprise you, especially with his team selection. Just as you start to think that, okay, this is his favorite 11, then the squad seems to change for the next 2 match days. I think there's plenty of possibilities going forward. Our squad depth is a lot better than it was last season, obviously. I think we've got at least 2 proper players in every position. I won't say like world-class players, but if you start with Ceballos and Willock on Ceballos and Partey on midfield, you still got Willock and Zaka to come in for them. Got Pepe and Willian and Nelson. You've got Nketiah, Lacazette, Saka, Aubameyang. Our squad depth is definitely improved a lot. Our defense improved a lot, and obviously Partey came to improve our midfield as well. But yeah, some episodes we did, I made some wild predictions that Frank Lampard will probably be sacked by the end of the season because he spent all this money, and I don't think they're going to do as well as they think they are. They've probably, from their starting 11 every week, it's from last season, it's probably at least 5 new players in. It takes a while for everyone to get to know each other and start really gelling as a team. I don't know if Chelsea, after all the money they spent, are going to sit around and wait for results to come. And like you said, United's completely in shambles. They didn't have a good transfer deadline at all. Now, I don't know the 2 youngsters they signed. The one went for quite a hefty fee. It's something like 21 million and 20 million in add-ons for that. I think it's Ahmed Diallo.
Yeah, it's almost like it sounds a lot like Adama Traore, because I remember seeing a meme.
Well, Ahmed Traore, yeah.
So,
That's right.
I remember seeing like a photo going on Twitter. It was Ole phoning Ed Woodward, ask him, okay, so we can't get Sancho, please get me Traore. Obviously, speaking about the Wolves winger / wing back, and Woodward says no problem, and he comes back with a relatively unknown quantity. So it's quite funny, seeing a club like, look, he might turn out to be an absolute steal. If you look at the last young winger they probably bought was someone like a Martial, and even longer back, someone like Ronaldo. So you never know, but looking at where and how the other teams strengthened, I think the United definitely took a step back this transfer window.
Yeah, well, Ahmed Traore, I think, is only linking up with United in January anyway. So he can't even make an instant impact, even if he wanted to. I really can't remember the other. I think it's also a winger's name. I heard he might be integrated into the first team immediately. But they didn't get any of their real transfer targets except for Donny van der Beek. They were chasing Sancho the whole window long, and then they got linked to Aliasar, Ousmane Dembele. I even heard them putting in a bid for Ansu Fati, things like that, and they end up with Edinson Cavani. No disrespect to Edinson, he's been a world-class striker and he's proven it over his years, but I think he's 33 years old now.
Yes, yeah.
For a player of that age, come into a struggling team like United and adapt immediately to the Premier League and make the difference. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference between, sorry, Mike, I just want to jump in. The biggest difference between someone like him and Willian, for instance, Willian's been playing in the Premier League for the last 7 years. Doesn't need time to set.
Yeah, and Willian moved from London to London. It's not a big adaptation at all. Cavani is going to have to adapt a lot. I know he's always been keeping fit and whatever, but the pace and the intensity of the Premier League. I'm going to speak now like I'm one of the players, but I'm not. But it's unreal until you actually experience it for yourself. I think because a lot of big name players come from a different league to come play in the Premier League, and they just never seem to click. They never seem to ever start going, and we've seen it tons of times before. And
The
as well
funniest
with their
thing, or
defense.
the best thing is usually it's with United. So yeah.
And with defense, everyone was saying they need a centre back, and they go out and buy themselves another left back. Obviously, it's going to be competition for Luke Shaw and whatever, and he'll probably be better than Luke Shaw. But what they really needed in this transfer window was a centre back, and you never actually saw them being linked to a centre back over the transfer window.
Yeah,
It's just funny
they were linked to
business to me.
Upamecano for a short while, and obviously
All week.
and yeah, well, and when we were linked to Gabriel, there were talks that they also made an inquiry. But obviously, that never came to
Nothing concrete.
fruition, and I think we actually had an absolute steal with Gabriel. If you look at the money they paid for Maguire, for instance, 80 million, 22 million or 27 million, depending on which report you read, an absolute steal for a 22-year-old that already looks ready to be a star in the Premier League.
No, I completely agree, Bren. I'm very, very happy with Arsenal's transfer window. It's probably an 8 out of 10, but a very, very good 8 out of 10, in my opinion. The only way the transfer window could have been better is if somehow managed to move on some more dead weight like Pratis, Kolasinac, probably Ozil, and Karim Asamoah, then it would have been probably a solid 12 out of 10 window.
Yeah, well, I think if we got a while and moved on a few more players, it would definitely be a 10 or, like you said, a 12 out of 10. For me, I think I'd probably have to take it down to about a 7 out of 10. If we could split it up, I would say outgoings 3 out of 10 and incomings 8 out of 10. I think we've got most of our targets except one player probably. But outgoings, looking at our wage bill, looking at we have to. We've got two players that we can't even register for the Premier League. So we've got too many non-homegrown players. So yeah, outgoings. I think I'm a bit disappointed, but we also need to keep in mind it was a COVID strict year, so stricken year. So obviously the finances of the clubs weren't as big as the normal transfer windows were.
Yeah, well, I actually wanted to bring up that point as well, Brent, that two players aren't going to make the Premier League squad. And I actually wanted to ask your opinion about who it's going to be. But just quickly before we start that, I obviously expect a few outgoings in the January transfer window that we move on now. Probably Kolasinac and Socrates at least. But getting to that as well, there's been talks about William Saliba going to, Brentford. I think that he's been linked quite a lot to Brentford.
Yes.
Because Brentford are also based in London. They want him to play like a full years of first team football. And, obviously the championship's probably more intense and physical than the Premier League. So it will obviously be a good year's worth of training for him. But that will, if that deal does go through or to any championship club, it will obviously only be one be cut from the squad, and I expect that.
So
Oh yeah, he's still under 21. Yeah, so it's still going to be two. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
okay.
even if we loan out a few of our young up and coming stars,
Youngsters.
it's not gonna work. Yeah. On Saliba, I saw. Well, it's been confirmed that everything was agreed for him to go back to St. for another year, and unfortunately for or not. I would actually still like to see him integrated into the team. I think we haven't seen him a lot, but obviously it looks like he's got lots of potential. But yeah, unfortunately that didn't work out. So hopefully whatever happens is best for his future and his continued growth, so that we can eventually use him as a starter for Arsenal. But yeah, Mike, on your question regarding the two players, I think you can't be anyone else than probably Ozil and Socrates. Personally, I wouldn't, I would keep Ozil in my squad and
No,
leave out.
I just wanted to say, Bren, sorry, jumping in, but you can't pay a guy £350,000 a week, and he doesn't even make a Premier League squad. I don't see that happening.
I think after the story with the Gunnosaurus Ozil posting, he would pay his wages and stuff like that. I think just torn the relationship up completely. I don't think it was not. Yes, it might have been a nice gesture from Ozil. It's a really nice human thing to do, but I think he did it with the intent of making Arsenal look bad, and I just think that the relationship not between Ozil and Arteta, but Ozil and the board is beyond repair. And if you looked at, there was a Twitter video going around Arsenal doing training, whatever, and Ozil and Arteta having a friendly fist bump, as they passed. So it looks like their relationship's still fine. So, which leads me to believe that Ozil's not been playing because of either a manager, not or a technical director, or a owner or a shareholder having a problem with Ozil and telling Arteta that he's not allowed to pick him. My personal opinion, but yeah, we'll probably see. We'll know a lot more. I think once the Premier League squads have been submitted.
All right, Brent. So sorry, I interrupted you a little bit. So you said we might see Ozil being one of the players that don't make the Premier League squad. Who's the other one? Mine would obviously be Socrates.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be Ozil and Socrates to be quite honest with you. But I would personally sound stupid because we signed them this summer, basically. But I'd probably not have Cedric Suarez in my squad because Bellerin is absolutely firing at the moment. There's no way he's losing his spot, and we've got Maitland Niles as cover for now. I think I would not been sold. I would use him as cover instead of Cedric. So yeah, I would personally do that, but if that's gonna happen, we'll have to wait and see. Yours?
Well, definitely Socrates. I don't think it would be Ozil because, like I said, £350,000 a week, and just imagine the reaction if Ozil from all the fans, from all the rival fans, and everything that if Ozil doesn't make the Premier League squad. Um, to be honest, I actually like him, but it's probably be someone like Moel Nini. Um, I think he's been playing very well since he's come back, but obviously midfield's now with centre back one of our most congested positions, and I don't know if he has a future with the club going forward. Probably he will be like a second string player to play the cup games and the Europa League and things like that. But I don't know if he has ambition going forward. I don't see him being an Arsenal player for years to come. I don't know. So maybe even loan him out. Being one of those.
I disagree. I think based on recent indications, I can't see Arteta dropping him from the squad. He looks to be an integral part of
I
Arteta's
don't think he's
plans.
going to.
Oh,
I don't think he's
with some
going
of
to.
them, okay. So those are the two you would drop. Who do you think is going to be dropped then?
It's a very difficult question. uh, all I can say is I think it's going to be Pratis. I think he's definitely going to be one of them. And it might, I don't know, it might be someone like Said Glasinac as well.
Um, well, the news also broke just before we started recording that Tierney is not available for the Man City clash. The Scotland team, one of the players was the positive coronavirus test, COVID-19 test, and Tierney was in close contact with him. So now he has to self-isolate for 14 days. So there's depending on what formation we go with, there's probably a big possibility of seeing Glasner in the squad against City when we face
Well,
them.
if Tierney is not going to be there, then
not even the squad in the starting lineup, because I believe we're going to stick to the back three against City. We're going to play a very similar type of team. I don't know if Partey will be ready to go straight into the lineup there. So we're going to see a very similar team that it's going to be very similar to the squad or the team and the style that played City Cup semi-finals. So that's my personal opinion. Also, that's a shocker because I think Tierney is so key to what Arsenal's doing and how Arteta wants to play and going forward. He's going to be such a big part of the squad. Just him missing the one game, it's going to be a lot to take, especially because it's against City.
No, I definitely agree with you, Bren. I want to see Tierney in the starting 11 week in, week out, to be honest with you. I think he's a very important player in the squad. Defends well, he's very committed, very energetic, and he's a better crosser from left back or left wing back than anyone else we have. Or probably not Saka, but Saka, we don't see him as a left back or left wing back. Maitland-Niles has been integrated into the left wing back position over Saka now. I really want to see Tierney in my starting lineup every week. So as you just mentioned it, I just got annoyed with that news because I really want to see him in the starting lineup every week.
Yeah, so look, I also agree with you. I think Saka is now, especially after the last two performances, Arteta has to use him in a more advanced positions. I think we will not see a lot of Saka in the left wing back position. Maybe maybe one or two times more while we're integrating the back four system in. But yeah, he's definitely going to be either left wing / stacking midfielder, interchanging with whoever in that midfield role, which is quite exciting. All right, Mike, I think we'll talk about the City game. We'll have a separate podcast, just previewing that game. On the Sheffield United game, there isn't really much to say more than it was a boring grab first half. I thought it's going to be more of the same. Arsenal having a lot of possession, not taking a lot of shots, eventually maybe scraping to one goal win. And at the end of the day, Arteta changed things up, and we finally saw that back four, and it was a really good performance for probably around 15 to 20 minutes. They scored a goal, they got back into the game, and we had to sit back a bit. Ride our luck the last 10 minutes, but overall, I think it was just good to see Arsenal attacking and being potent in attack with their formation and the attacking and creative players that we've got at the club at the moment. All right, before we go, I want to find out from you. Give me two transfer winners and two losers. Two clubs, the top or the best two clubs and the worst two clubs in your eyes regarding the transfer window.
Well, let's start off with worst because I still have to pick my best two clubs while I'm talking now. It has to be Burnley, firstly because they barely did any business at all, and they were struggling a bit last season from where they were from this previous season before, I can't see things getting any better now than it was last season. I think they actually can have a relegation battle on their hands. And then the other one would either be West Brom, because I also don't think they did too much in the market, but I'll probably go for United, just for pure fact they didn't make any signing that you would actually think, wow, that he's going to come in and make an impact in the side. I can actually, except for Donny van der Beek, I can see all of the other players that they signed being on the bench for most of the season.
Even Donny van der Beek has been struggling to get into side. So
well, obviously there's a lot of talk about that. The pundits say they already had Fernandes and Pogba, and he plays in the same positions. And Matic will probably keep his position in CDM. So why don't they rather sign a younger, more versatile, quicker uh, CDM than they have in Matic? But yeah, that's not our problem. Um, I have to say Arsenal's a winner because I'm very happy with what what transfer business we did. Like you said, Cedric was probably a bit unnecessary. I think the club might have thought that Maitland-Niles was looking to move on. That might be one of the reasons we signed him. But other than that, I think Murray. It's very difficult to tell what he has to offer, but I don't think he's going to be a bad signing. I don't think he's going to be a starter week in, week out, especially when Saliba starts playing and starts catching form. And, Gabriel Magalhaes, he's already doing his thing in the Premier League after just coming into the team. And Partey,
I see Maury as a backup to, well, they probably had it the other way around, but I see Maury as a backup to Gabriel because they're both left footed. They probably will have the same role in the team going forward.
Yeah. And then obviously we've got Saliba and Rob Holding on the right going forward as well.
Hey, don't forget about Callum. Hey, he's also back in training.
Callum
Chambers is back after this international break, and you know what? He was our best defender this season. He got injured, before he got injured last year.
Yeah, well, the nice thing about having Callum in your side is that he's so versatile. He can probably play anywhere in the defense you want him to. I haven't seen him on left back, but I've seen him on both centre back positions. I've seen him on right back. I've seen him in the midfield, and he always gives his all. At the very least, if he let's say if he doesn't even have a good performance on the day, you can see him working hard every single second he's on the pitch. I'd never complain at having him in the squad. But yeah, obviously Sabas and Partey came in to strengthen the midfield. Now, one transfer that William did come in to probably provide experience and help the youngsters out. But with Pepe and Nelson, and with us being in the position that we have to cut two players now, William might also prove to be unnecessary, but we all know the quality of play he is. He's a very good player. He did well at Chelsea. He's already started, I think 3 of the 4 Premier League games, or did he start all 4?
He started all the
Premier League games.
Yes.
Started all 4, yeah. But yeah, I just think it takes away game time unnecessarily from probably Pepe, Nelson, Saka, players like that. Yeah. Other than that, I think we did very, very well. And then you can't say Chelsea now because they haven't hit the ground running. Probably has to be Spurs. I think Spurs, I didn't want them to have a good transfer window, but they ended up having a really good transfer window, and they're still looking at a centre back in Joe Rodon. Apparently, he's very highly rated. They say he's Premier League ready, and if they can add a proper defender to their side now, I think they're also going to challenge for the top 4 at the very least, because now I think their defense is going to be their biggest problem going forward. Other than that, their midfield and their attack looks quite strong.
Yeah, especially with Ndombele, starting to pay back a bit of his wages or his fee. I think he's starting to, integrate well into that Spurs side. And the big question mark, obviously, is Gareth Bale. Yes, he is a fantastic player, but he hasn't played a lot the last 2 years, and he's been injured quite a bit. So we don't know what the situation is there. We know he's got like 2 or 3 weeks before he might even start his first game for Spurs because of injury problems. He had an injury picked up with Wales the previous international break. Yeah, so I have to agree with you on the worst transfer winners. Burnley, that I believe didn't make a signing. So how can you rate them if they didn't even do anything?
Well, I read they made 2 signings, but I don't even know if it was first team players or academy players or what. Whoever they were, they're not very well known players.
And yeah, I think Fulham just about dragged themselves out of that contention with the last day loan signing of Ruben Loftus-Cheek. It's going to add a bit of quality to their midfield. So it has to be probably, I think Sheffield United also only signed a Brewster, if I'm not mistaken, from Liverpool for 23 million. Don't know if they brought in anyone else. That's insane. I think he hasn't played 1 minute of Premier League football, and you sign a unproven player for 23 mil. Yes, he might have a lot of potential, but that's ludicrous. So if that's the only signing, that'd probably be my second worst.
I think they actually have 1 or 2 other signing, Bren. I can't tell you, but I recall reading a report saying that the player was brought in to provide competition for someone like John Lundstrom or something like that. I don't think Brewster was the only signing, but they also didn't have the
Let's
best.
have a look. But any case, then my best two. I think there were quite a few contenders. I was very impressed with Aston Villa's business. Seeing Ollie Watkins score a hat-trick against Liverpool, Ross Barkley also hit the ground running. Amy Martinez, a top-class goalkeeper that they got. And yeah, so I probably one of them probably has to be Aston Villa. Arsenal's up there, Tottenham's up there. I think it's difficult to write off Chelsea. They did some excellent work. I think just their side is very top heavy at the moment. But you can't disagree with the players that they bought. They bought a lot of young, exciting, dynamic players, and even Newcastle, they actually had a quite decent
There were
run of
actually quite a lot of Premier League sides that had good windows, Bren. So it is a very difficult choice to make.
So
Like you said, Villa would probably be, yeah, okay, sorry, just.
I'll have to be biased like you and just give Arsenal, even though I'm not 100% sure that they make my top two, but the other teams are so close. I'll just let my biases throw my trump card in.
Yeah, well, mine, like I said, it's definitely quite a bit of bias as well. Actually, while I was thinking about the best transfer windows, I forgot about Aston Villa. They did have a very, very good window. And yeah, the only reason Chelsea's in my top two is just things haven't clicked yet for them. Obviously, I expect them to click and I expect it to get a lot better, but they in the same position as Spurs are in now. Their defense are going to struggle. They're in the same position as United, as we were for how many seasons in the past now. Obviously, it's a bit too early to say this season all of a sudden our defense is good, but so far so good at least. So I think a lot of teams just went for attacking players. Let's score goals. Let's be creative. But now they're going to leave their defense wide open, and they don't have the best of defenses to start with.
Yeah. All right, Mike. As always, thanks. I think we covered a lot more ground than we thought we were going to. I think we ran into a few other teams' transfer business that we weren't expecting. But for everyone that is interested, we are planning over the weekend a Premier League show where we'll go into a bit more detail into the other team transfers, how their current results have been, what how they've been doing, what we expect to see from them the rest of the season. And after that, we'll have a dedicated episode for the Man City preview, where once that's a bit closer. Obviously, this is an international break, interlull, so we'll try to keep everyone entertained and just keep ourselves busy meanwhile. Mike, thanks for joining. See you next time.